In May 2003, the President of the United States stood on an aircraft carrier and declared that major combat operations in Iraq were over. But that victory speech was premature. Over the next 8 years, the conflict claimed over 4,400 American lives, drained $2 trillion from the economy, and dragged the military into a relentless 8-year grind. How did a military campaign that successfully captured a nation's capital in just 3 weeks devolve into a devastating long-term disaster? To figure that out, we have to look back at the immediate aftermath of September 11th. While the U.S. military deployed to Afghanistan to hunt down al-Qaeda, the Bush administration was already turning its attention to the Middle East, specifically locking on to Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein. Officials built a case for invasion on 3 major assertions. They argued Saddam had active stockpiles of biological and chemical weapons. He maintained deep ties to terrorists, and he posed an immediate danger to the entire globe. The response was immediate and massive. On a single day in February 2003, between 6 and 10 million people marched across 800 cities around the world, begging the U.S. and its allies to give UN weapons inspectors more time. Despite historic international opposition and direct pleas from allied nations to wait, the administration was certain they were facing an existential threat. They issued an ultimatum, and 3 days later, they launched the invasion. The Pentagon called the opening salvo shock and awe, and it lived up to the name. The night sky over Baghdad lit up with a barrage of Tomahawk cruise missiles and precision-guided bombs raining down on military bases and government command centers. Almost simultaneously, a combined force of 177,000 U.S. and British troops charged across the desert. American armored columns blitzed straight through the streets of Baghdad, dismantling the Iraqi military's resistance in a matter of weeks. Taking the capital was an execution of conventional military speed. But shattering a dictator's regime is different from ruling the fractured nation left in the rubble. The task of rebuilding the country fell to the Coalition Provisional Authority, led by an American envoy named Paul Bremer. Within his first few weeks on the job, Bremer issued Order No. 1, de-Baathification. This banned anyone who belonged to Saddam's political party from holding a government job. Because the party had controlled every facet of Iraqi society, this single order stripped the country of its teachers, doctors, and engineers overnight. Looking at this diagram, you see the impact of Bremer's second policy, dissolving the entire Iraqi military. Hundreds of thousands of trained soldiers were sent home without pay. These armed, desperate men, unable to feed their families, funneled directly into organized resistance cells. Through administrative negligence, the coalition had supplied the manpower, the motivation, and the weaponry to its own enemies. The conflict morphed from conventional tank battles into an asymmetric war. Insurgents began burying cheap, easily hidden explosive devices in the trash and debris lining the roads, turning every routine patrol into a gamble. Meanwhile, a Jordanian militant named Abu Musab al-Zarqawi emerged as the leader of al-Qaeda in Iraq. He orchestrated a wave of car bombings, kidnappings, and filmed executions designed to terrorize local civilians and coalition troops. Then, in April 2004, leaked photographs revealed American soldiers humiliating and abusing Iraqi detainees at Abu Ghraib prison. Those images damaged America's reputation and acted as a recruitment tool for militant factions across the Middle East. By the end of 2004, the violence culminated in Fallujah, where U.S. Marines were forced into block-by-block urban combat. They had to fight house by house through sniper nests and booby traps to clear the city of entrenched fighters. But the violence didn't stay contained. Zarqawi targeted sacred Shia religious sites to provoke a reaction. When his operatives blew apart the golden dome of the al-Askari mosque, the country fractured. Retaliatory death squads began roaming the streets. American forces found themselves fighting an insurgency while trapped in the crossfire of a sectarian civil war. By 2006, the situation hit a breaking point. Weapons inspectors confirmed Iraq had no stockpiles of WMDs. Public support cratered. Facing an impossible choice, President Bush ordered a surge, sending 20,000 additional troops into the violence. He handed control of this surge to General David Petraeus, tasking him with implementing a doctrinal shift known as counterinsurgency, or COIN. This map illustrates Petraeus' strategy. Previously, troops cleared neighborhoods and retreated to fortified bases, allowing insurgents to return. The new doctrine moved soldiers out of bases to live within local neighborhoods, protecting civilians block by block. In late 2006, Sunni tribal leaders in Anbar province grew sick of al-Qaeda's brutality. These local groups, some of whom had previously fought against American patrols, reached out to U.S. commanders to form an alliance against their common enemy. This strategy stabilized the country by prioritizing direct, daily engagement with the Iraqi people. Success relied on soldiers moving away from heavy maneuvers and into the streets to restore services and build trust with local communities. As for Saddam Hussein, the man who ruled Iraq for over 2 decades was found hiding in a tiny underground dirt hole. He was put on trial by an Iraqi court, found guilty of crimes against humanity, and executed. By the time the Obama administration ordered the final withdrawal in 2011, there were no fireworks. The last American convoys quietly drove out across the border into Kuwait. The justification for launching the conflict was built on weapons of mass destruction that did not exist. That intelligence failure fractured public trust in government institutions, both at home and abroad. The final math of the conflict is staggering. Over 4,400 American troops were killed. The Iraqi civilian death toll reached into the hundreds of thousands, and the financial burden drained roughly $2 trillion from the U.S. economy. The invasion destabilized an entire region, leaving a fractured landscape that allowed groups like ISIS to rise just a few years later. The legacy of the war is balanced only by the courage of the individual service members, who stepped into the chaos and navigated an impossible situation.